Welcome back to Lafayette Returns, an historic Rockford podcast released monthly leading up to Lafayette Day at Rockford, Monday, July 28th, 2025. Each episode explores a new topic related to the Marquis de Lafayette's farewell tour of America in 1824 and 25. I'm your host, Lisa Landis-Blowers. Chuck Schwam joins us. He is the executive director of the American Friends of Lafayette and chair of the National Lafayette 200 Bicentennial. Welcome, Chuck. I am so excited. It is such an honor to officially meet you. I have heard so much about you.
Thank you, Lisa. It's an honor to meet you, too. And I see George Washington in your background. So we have George Washington was kind of the genesis of, frankly, why I'm here.
I actually moved George from my living room to the office in honor of you. So thank you for noticing.
My pleasure. We'll get into why George Washington is the reason we're talking today later on, I'm sure.
Give us a little bit of background. How did you become involved with the American Friends of Lafayette?
Okay, well, let's talk George Washington then, because that's the reason. I'm a reader. I love history, and I did a deep dive on George Washington back in 2008, and I read as much as I could about him. And what I found interesting about George Washington is he kind of had a veneer around him, like a force field. Nobody really touched him. He didn't smile much. He didn't show a lot of emotion. He was a very even-keeled guy that really didn't give up himself to other people very easily. But then there was this one guy that kept penetrating that force field, that would make him smile, that gave him hugs in public, that treated him like a father figure. It was just amazing. That was General Lafayette, the Marquis de Lafayette. And I've been hooked ever since. Ever since I started reading about Lafayette, he has become a major focus in not only my life, but my wife's life as well.
So, Chuck, how did you find yourself in this position as chair of the National Lafayette 200 Bicentennial? I mean, I'm thinking it comes with a lot of responsibility.
Well, nobody else wanted it, frankly, to be honest with you. I was the executive director, and this was something that we thought was important. It was a big job, and I have a real job, too. So this is an unpaid volunteer job, but I still felt like it was important. And so we've been working on this since 2021. So I've decided I would take it on. I've formed over 40 committees around the country. There's about 400 or so volunteers around the country working on this project. That's how it all started back in 2021. We thought this would be important.
Oh, and I understand that you've been doing a lot of traveling. Have you been traveling to some of these events as they've been taking place so far on the tour?
Yeah, I try to make as many events as I can for several reasons. I want to make sure that, the gathered understand what we're doing with the American Friends of Lafayette. Not that the committee chairs can't do that, but on a national level, it's important that I be there. It's also important because I have a relationship with these committees. And, I've been working with these committees for years. And, I want to see what they've done. It's exciting. They want me to be there. So I've tried to be to as many events as I can. I would tell you I've been to probably 10 states so far worth of Lafayette events. And also I went to many states to visit sites where we're going to do commemorations in preparation back in 2022 and 2023.
Yeah, it really is the local communities, the schools and other organizations that are making this possible.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. The first thing I had to do was find people in each community that was willing to do this. And that was the first thing I had to do. And I would say I did a pretty good job on that because they're just killing it out there. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's a tsunami. It's a snowball rolling down the hill. It's amazing.
Oh, can you bring us up to date on where Lafayette is at this moment in time?
Lafayette is in South Carolina right now. I just left there. I was in Cheraw. It's a small town on the other side of the border, just south of North Carolina. And then he went into Camden, now he's going down towards Savannah and Charleston. Towards Charleston. He will end up in Savannah in the middle of next week. I'm going to go down there, and I'm going to go to events in Edisto Island, which is an amazing place that Lafayette visited. Beaufort, the Beaufort Committee's doing amazing work down there, and finally into Savannah, Georgia. Then he heads through Georgia into Alabama, across into New Orleans, Louisiana, and then up the Mississippi. So we still have 7 months to go.
Any memorable moments so far that you've experienced on the tour? And maybe that's not fair. It's like asking, who's your favorite child?
Well, I'll tell you a couple of things. Day one, which we were on a boat when Lafayette was arriving. Lafayette was on the boat with us, and the boat went beside the Statue of Liberty. And the picture of Lafayette holding an American flag going by the Statue of Liberty was one of the most memorable images I'll ever see. We had thousands of people in New York. We paraded up Broadway. That was an amazing event. Another amazing event was Yorktown, October 19th. I stood with the ambassador of France and General Jardin, the military attaché, as I watched French military and American jets fly over Yorktown. It was an amazing moment. The flyover was incredible, and it just talked about our alliance between our two countries. And we had over 5,000 people in Yorktown that day.
Oh.
We had hundreds of people at Independence Hall in Philadelphia. I mean, I just is going on and on. But I got to be honest with you, one of the cool things is these small little events in little towns. They're just as important and maybe even more close to what Lafayette might have seen in some of the small towns he went to 200 years ago.
Well, we can't wait for him to arrive in Lancaster. So looking forward to that. Of course, he doesn't get here until July. I'm just curious, Chuck, you personally, why do you think it is so important that we commemorate the life of Lafayette and this grand tour of the United States?
We really are trying to teach people about three things. Number one is that history is important. All the questions about the future can be answered simply by looking in the past. Oh, yeah, I know we've been focusing on math and science, but history is important too, because we kind of keep making the same mistakes over and over again. And I feel like it's important to make sure people embrace history and read about history and especially the history of our country. Number two is that Franco-American alliance. I mean, that France is our oldest ally. People don't realize that. People don't realize that the final battle of the Revolutionary War, there were more French military personnel than American. If it wasn't for the French, our national food would be fish and chips. So I just feel it's important that they understand that, yeah, we bailed them out in World War I, we helped them in World War II, but they helped us. Without them, we would have never won the Revolutionary War. And the last thing is about Lafayette. Lafayette not only has an important general, but he came back and was an influencer as far as human rights are concerned. And I'm sure we'll talk about that later in this broadcast, but the human rights aspect of Lafayette really is getting a lot of traction around the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk more about that now. Some of his most significant contributions, of course, to the war, but to American history that still resonates today.
So I think connecting the dots to today is important. And I think that's how we get people's attention when we talk to them about Lafayette, to be honest with you. So Lafayette, when he came back in 1824, it still resonated in his mind that all people were created equal. We wrote that in a document that frankly ignited his interest in coming to America. So 43 years later, he still felt very importantly that all people were created equal. And when he came here and saw that we weren't treating all people equally, he didn't stand in front of us and lecture us and tell us that we were doing poorly. He instead did small things for us to see in person. For instance, he treated women as intellectual equals as they were. He didn't understand why your brain was different than my brain. He didn't understand that. And not only did he treat women as intellectual equals, but women followed him around the country because they felt like they found a champion as a feminist that Lafayette was. Number two is obviously he was a major abolitionist, and he saw slavery in a worse state ever in 1824. What's important to know is he spent time with African Americans when he traveled around our country. As a matter of fact, on October 19th, 1824, he saw his friend James Armistead Lafayette in the crowd, stopped his speech, walked down the stairs, and gave him a hug. Nobody had seen a white man hug an African American man in this way. And he did it in front of thousands and thousands of people. And lastly, the Native Americans. This was another important relationship for him. He even left certain situations like balls or dinners early so he could make time for the Native Americans because they weren't on the schedule, and he made sure he added them to the schedule. These are just things that he really, really worked hard on making sure we understood. It's interesting, Lisa. He went around the country and Americans showed him all our best resources, whether natural or man-made. So he saw Niagara Falls, but he also saw this new penitentiary in Philadelphia. They were so proud of the way this penitentiary was set up, but it was set up as solitary confinement for everybody. So when Lafayette came in there and they said, "What do you think?" He was like, "I don't think this is great."
He had spent time in prison. He may have had
5 years.
some knowledge
Yeah,
of
5
that.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, so I understand he was only supposed to be here for 3 months, and then he extended that, which I'm glad he did because he didn't make it to Lancaster until July.
Yeah.
Yeah, why do you think that was?
Oh, that's because everybody wanted Lafayette. He
Yeah.
was only supposed to go to maybe the first 13 states. Our country had 24 states at the time. But, he was never supposed to go to St. Louis or Natchez or the little towns like Gallipolis, Ohio. That was not supposed to happen. But everybody started writing him, and he loved it. Oh, don't get me wrong. Lafayette loved the attention. He was America's first rock star.
Yes.
90,000 people came to the docks in New York when he arrived. That's like 80,000 more than the Beatles got. So, I mean, Lafayette truly was the first rock star. And it's just amazing. Everybody wanted to see him. So that's why he extended it by 10 months.
Chuck, what have been some of the challenges in putting something like this together?
It's so interesting. So Lafayette was in horse and buggy most of the time, horse and carriage. And, in the New England states, we're having trouble keeping up with them. I mean, because of traffic and red lights and whatnot. If he went to 5 or 6 towns in a day, and frankly, we're having trouble keeping up with them up there. Some of the other challenges are simply finding people of interest. And luckily we were able to do that, but that was not an easy task, finding people who found this as important as we did. But the further we go along, people are finding out about it, and it's just coming out of the woodwork. It was back in 2021 and 2022 where that was a challenge. Challenges now could be weather. I mean, Philadelphia, unfortunately, was a very rainy day, and we had to have it outdoors in front of Independence Hall. Other challenges could be cost, because we are a nonprofit, so we're raising money for all these events. We're promising these committees that we're going to bring a Lafayette interpreter to their commemoration. So they'll have somebody that speaks French, that speaks English, that looks like Lafayette, that wears a Lafayette outfit, that knows all about Lafayette at each event. So we have to pay that person's fee. We have to get them there, travel, and everything else.
I'm so glad you're doing this because I honestly feel like there's a lot of people, all ages, that are learning about Lafayette, maybe for the first time. I don't feel like I studied him as much as I should have in high school. Now, I was in high school back in the 80s, so maybe that has changed. Why don't we learn about him? Why don't we study him more?
Not only do we not learn about him, but we don't learn about the Franco-American Alliance. And we've changed that in Virginia. We're very proud that we changed the SOLs in Virginia to teach this. Virginia's really impressed Lafayette. They have a Lafayette Day, which is coming up on Friday. It's a very big day, and Governor Youngkin is welcoming us to the mansion there. And the state of Virginia has done a great job of adding Lafayette in the Franco-American Alliance. But our job as an organization is to get other schools districts to teach this. And the other thing our job is to make sure we reach younger people. And most of our committees are doing a great job of having events where younger people can be invited, or we go into schools and we talk to kids about Lafayette. And because of that, our audiences are getting younger and our membership is getting younger. We have 1,500 members around the country. When I started, we only had 100. And not only are we getting younger, but we're getting more diverse, and that's what Lafayette would want.
Can we talk about what's happening locally here in Lancaster County?
What's interesting about Lancaster County is it's not only what's happening when Lafayette comes there in late July 27th, 28th, and 29th. It's what Lancaster County is doing even now. I mean, it's just unbelievable. The committee chair, Kathleen Hood, is such a force. Her fundraising skills are second to none. I have no committee that's done better than Kathleen. And not only that, but she's also doing great work with things like Marquee Mondays, where Lafayette scholars are speaking every other Monday night on a Zoom that we are promoting for her. And these are very well attended events that have been happening for a couple months now, right up to July. And other things that she's doing locally in preparation for what's happening on July 27th, 28th, and 29th. But I know what's happening in Lancaster is going to be very robust. It's on my calendar. I definitely will be attending. And anybody listening to this right now, I promise you, go to Lafayette200.org. You'll see exactly what's happening. And it's going to be really, really spectacular because Kathleen is amazing.
Oh, she is amazing. She has been such a pleasure to work with. I have to tell you, Chuck, I was just at a lecture yesterday at Historic Rockford on 1820s fashion, and they included men's fashion as well. So now we know what to wear to the local Lafayette Ball and some of the other events that are happening here locally.
You know, what's interesting about that is that I had no idea that period costuming was important to people, but it's just amazing how incredible response we're getting when we put that on an invitation. I mean, the other day I was at a ball in Lafayette's honor, and I was pretty much the only person not in period costume. And it looked like a real 1824 ball with the period music and everything. So it's really catching on. I'm really excited.
Yeah, our event yesterday sold out, by the way. A lot of people just really interested and excited and planning their outfits for Lafayette. How can we get involved, not just locally here in Lancaster, but across all the events? I'm assuming that you are accepting donations.
Yes, we are. We're really working hard on raising money, and you can go to two of our websites. We have two websites. One specifically to the Bicentennial is Lafayette200.org. And the beauty of that website is you can see where Lafayette's going, where he's been, what we're doing. All the events are on that website. And then the other thing you can do is you can click that donate button and help us out. We'd really, really appreciate it. It's fully tax deductible, and we'll send you a thank you letter for the IRS. And then the other website we have is American Friends of Lafayette.org or friendsoflafayette.org. That's our main website. There's great information about Lafayette on that website and about our organization. And we've been around since 1932, so you'll find a lot of information on that website as well.
Well, Chuck, this has been so wonderful. Thank you so much. I know you are so busy. I know as we're speaking here, your email's blowing up and you're a wanted man. But I just wanted to say in closing here, if there's one thing we could take away about the character of Lafayette or learn about Lafayette if we attend one of these celebrations, what would that be?
So I think the most important thing is to understand that Lafayette knew at a very young age, and remember, he came over at 19 years old, that not only did he love our country, but he loved all people. He didn't see color. He didn't see gender. He just saw human beings. And I'm looking forward to the day when we all just see human beings. And Lafayette has taught me that, and we're trying to teach that to other people as well.
Great answer. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you so much. I'm sure you're so busy, so you can get off to planning the next event.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to meet you.
All right. We'll see you later.
Tune in next month for a brand new episode as we prepare for Lafayette's visit. For more information on Rockford's Lafayette Day, visit historicrockford.org/special-events. For information on what's happening across Lancaster and Western Chester counties, go to Lafayette200pa.org. I'm Lisa Landis Flowers. Thank you so much for listening.